Hey, quick question before we get into this. When was the last time you looked at your life and felt like you were already too late, like the window had closed, like everyone else got the memo and you somehow missed it, like you're standing outside looking through the glass at people who figured it out, and you're wondering what is fundamentally deeply wrong with you that you haven't? Yeah. I want to talk about that today. So my name's Marcus, and I want to tell you something that took me an embarrassingly long time to understand. I'm 51 years old now, and I spent a good chunk of my 30s and 40s convinced I was broken. Not sad broken, not dramatic broken. Just quietly, persistently convinced that I had missed some developmental window that other people had sailed right through, and that I was paying for it every single day. I grew up in a small town in eastern Tennessee. My dad was a mechanic. My mom worked the front desk at a dentist's office for 23 years. Good people, hard-working people, but nobody in my family had any kind of roadmap for what I was supposed to do with my life, and so I improvised. I dropped out of my first college at 19, got a job at a warehouse, met a girl, lost the girl, moved to a different city because I thought geography would fix what was actually an internal problem, which for the record it never does. Enrolled in a different school at 24, dropped that one too. Started a small business at 28 that collapsed in 14 months. By 32, I had a list of things I'd tried and abandoned that was longer than most people's resumes. And every single time I talked to someone my age, every time I'd run into someone from high school at a gas station or see something on social media, I'd do this involuntary comparison. And I always came up short. They had the career. They had the house, they had the retirement account they were supposedly contributing to regularly. I had a truck that needed new brake pads and a storage unit full of inventory from the business that didn't make it. I genuinely thought I was the cautionary tale. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've got all the answers. I don't. Any person who tells you they've got it all figured out, you walk away from that person slowly and you don't look back. What I can tell you is that I've been in the mud, real mud, not television mud where it washes off in the next scene, the kind that gets into everything and takes years to fully clean out. And I've come out the other side of some very hard seasons with a few things I know to be true. Not theories, not stuff I read in a book and thought sounded good, things I learned the hard way in real time with real consequences. And I think some of what I figured out might land for you, especially if you're in your 20s or 30s and you're carrying this low hum of anxiety that you're already somehow running behind. Because I want to tell you something. You're not behind. You're just early. The first thing I want to talk about is the comparison trap and why it's built on a lie. Here's what nobody tells you when you're in your 20s and looking around at everyone else's life. You're comparing your internal reality. All your doubts, all your mess, all your private failures, all the 3 a.m. moments where you're lying there thinking you've made every wrong turn. You're comparing all of that to the external surface of someone else's life, the part they chose to show you. That is not a fair fight. That is never going to be a fair fight. I had a buddy named Carl. Carl was the guy everyone pointed to. 27 years old, good job in finance, nice apartment downtown, always looked like he'd just come from somewhere important. I used to see Carl's life from the outside and feel this particular kind of shame, like watching someone effortlessly do something physical that you've been secretly struggling with for years. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known from the outside, was that Carl hadn't slept more than 5 hours a night in 2 years, that he was quietly drowning in credit card debt he'd hidden from his family, that he cried in his car on Thursday mornings before going into the office because he hated what he was doing and didn't know how to say so to the people who were proud of him. I found that out later, years later, over drinks at a bar where we'd both finally stopped performing for each other. The external image and the internal reality are almost never the same thing. And you're torturing yourself with a comparison that isn't real. Stop measuring your guts against someone else's highlight reel. It is one of the most corrosive habits you can have, and it is absolutely everywhere right now. And I wish someone had sat me down and said that clearly when I was 25. The second thing, the detours are not detours. I want you to hear this one carefully. When I was 34, I took a job completely unrelated to anything I thought my life was going to be about. I needed money. The business had failed. My savings were gone. I took a job managing a small maintenance crew at an apartment complex. I was embarrassed about it. I didn't tell people what I was doing. If someone asked, I kind of vaguely said I was in property management and then changed the subject. I spent 2 years doing that job, and those 2 years, which I was convinced at the time were a detour, a setback, evidence of my failure, turned out to be 2 of the most formative years of my life. I learned how to manage people I had nothing in common with. I learned how to stay calm when 3 things broke at once. I learned how to communicate with people who were frustrated and scared because renters who have a water leak in their ceiling at 11 at night are scared. And I learned how to be present and useful in a moment of crisis without falling apart myself. Every single skill I use now in what I actually do for a living, coaching, consulting, speaking, I can trace back to something I learned in a job I was mortified to have. The detour was the road. I didn't understand that while I was on it. I understand it clearly now. Whatever you're doing right now that feels like a dead end, like a wrong turn, like something you'll need to explain and apologize for someday, I'm not going to promise you it's secretly perfect. Sometimes things are just hard and there's no silver lining that ties it all together neatly. But I will tell you this, the capacity you're building right now in the hard season is real. It's going in, it's compounding, and you won't be able to see it fully until you're standing somewhere different looking back. Just don't quit the road before you find out where it leads. Third thing, and this one's harder to say, stop trying to borrow maturity you haven't earned yet. I know, that sounds almost insulting. Stay with me. There's this pressure. I felt it. I see it in every young man I talk to. This pressure to be settled, to have the answers, to project a kind of calm authority about your life that suggests you know exactly where you're going and why. And so people fake it. I faked it. I performed settled when I was turbulent. I talked about my 5-year plan with total confidence when I genuinely had no idea what I was doing past the next few weeks. And the faking is exhausting. It costs you something real every single time you do it, because you're spending energy maintaining a fiction instead of spending that energy actually figuring things out. Here's the truth. You cannot be a 45-year-old man at 26. The miles aren't there, the losses aren't there, the recoveries aren't there. and trying to perform that level of settledness before you've actually walked through the fire enough times to earn it. It doesn't make you look mature. It makes you brittle, because when the next hard thing hits, and it will, you've got a performance to maintain and reality is cracking through it, and that gap is where people fall apart. A good cast iron skillet isn't worth anything the day it gets made. You have to use it. You have to burn things in it and clean it and season it and burn things in it again. And over years, it becomes this incredible cooking surface that nothing can replicate. But you don't get there without the burning, without the mess, without the long, unglamorous process of being used. Be your age. Let the process happen at the pace it needs to happen. The settledness will come, but you can't force it, and faking it will cost you more than it saves. Fourth, the people who look like they never struggled are often the least equipped for what's coming. I mean this gently, but I mean it completely. I have watched over and over across many years people who had things come easily in their 20s hit a serious wall in their 40s and 50s and have no idea what to do with it because they had never developed the muscle. Nobody develops that muscle when things go smoothly. You only build it by being in situations where you have to reach for it. The people I know personally who are the most resilient, the most genuinely capable under pressure, the most useful in a crisis, almost without exception, they have a history that includes serious failure, multiple failures, things that looked from the outside like evidence they weren't going to make it. What looked like falling behind was actually the training ground. Now, I want to be careful here because this can slide into just romanticizing suffering, and I don't want to do that. Struggle is not automatically good. Some people go through terrible things and it just damages them, and that's real and that matters. But struggle that you move through, struggle that you sit with honestly and learn from and carry forward into the next season, that does something to you that easy success simply cannot replicate. You are being built right now, even if it doesn't feel like building, even if it feels like collapse. Trust the process enough to stay in it. And the last thing, maybe the hardest thing, forgive yourself for not knowing what you couldn't have known. I spent so many years angry at the younger version of myself, at every stupid decision, every missed opportunity, every time I chose the wrong thing or ran away from the right thing or just stood still when I should have moved. I carried this low-grade rage at my own history that was slowly poisoning everything. And one day a man, an older man, someone I deeply respected, someone who had been through real hardship and come out the other side with something genuine, he said to me, "You can't go back and fix it, but you can stop punishing yourself for surviving it." That hit me somewhere I didn't expect. You did the best you could with what you knew and what you had at that point in your life. Every single time. I know that sounds like a soft, easy thing to say, but I believe it completely. The decisions that look foolish in hindsight were made by a version of you that didn't have hindsight yet. That's not a character flaw. That's just being human. The self-judgment is not helping you grow. It's not sharpening you. It's just weight, and you can put it down. So look, here's where I land. I'm 51, and I still don't have everything figured out. I'll be honest with you about that. There are whole categories of my life I'm still working on, probably always will be, And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing that as a failure and started seeing it as proof that I'm still in the game, still moving, still asking questions, still willing to be wrong and course correct. That's all any of us can actually do. If you're 23 and your life feels like a construction site, that's correct, it should. If you're 31 and you feel like you've gotten to a point and then lost it and you're starting over, that's not the end of something. That's the beginning of the version of you that's actually going to last. I wish someone had told me that, I really do. I wish someone had sat me down at 28, looked me in the eye and said, "You are not broken, you are not behind, you are just not done yet." Because I wasn't, and neither are you.